Hi guys, my name is Nunika. I'm a final year fashion student at Staffs, and today I'm talking to you about some of the culture shocks I experienced when I first moved to Stoke from Delhi, India. So, funnily enough, it's been 4 years, and I've realized most of the things I was quite shocked by before. I've kind of acquired in my daily life. I kind of use that terminology now, and it's become normal. But recently, a friend of mine came up to me and she was asking me all of these things, and she was like, "Oh, someone called me duck. Is that meant to be normal?" And I went to the Tesco the other day, and I was looking for some crisps, but we don't call them crisps. It made me really like reflect on the fact that when I first came, I had all of these questions, and I was thinking of all of these things, and like somehow it's become normal everyday life now. But I thought it'd be quite interesting to share it. So here are some of the culture shocks I faced when I first moved to Stoke. Um, the first thing I think for me was the duck, I think, definitely. So people call you duck in Stoke, which is meant to like it's a term of endearment, comes out of love. Someone could say like they just look at you and they say thanks, duck. And the first time the term was used in front of me was when I was ordering a coffee at campus, and she said duck, and the first thing that came to my head was I started rhyming the closest words to it, thinking maybe I've misheard it, and she didn't mean to say duck, she meant to say something else. So I kept trying to like rhyme the words in my head, thinking, oh, what's the closest thing she could have possibly said? And then gave up, turned around to my other friend, and I said, someone just called me duck, I'm not sure what that means. And she was like, it just means love, and like or like deer or something like that. And I was like, okay, cool, now that really does make sense to me. And it's become a term that I really really love. So every time someone does say duck, like my ears are up and I'm like, all in, and I'm hearing it. I don't really use the term a lot, but I do like to hear it because I think every time I hear it, I'm reminded of this one story of the first time someone called me duck. I think the second thing is the fact that most things here are closed on Sundays, or like they will close early. Back at home, Sunday is a big day where everything is open because loads of people have days off and they like to go out. Like the grocery shops and the malls are either open like all day, or they're open till later on a Sunday because we believe like most people go out on the Sunday to shop and do things like that. But here it's quite the flip, and on Sunday things are closed or they're closed earlier, because it's meant to be the day off and everyone's meant to be resting, which I find really, really interesting. Another thing is, I think, the terminology. So this is like a couple of different terms that I've heard, and they may not really mean the same thing, or we don't really use those terms. So the first one I think is like trousers and pants. So we use the term interchangeably. We hardly ever say trousers back home. We usually say pants, and when we say pants, we mean trousers. Here it doesn't really mean that. So pants here means underpants, and trousers obviously means trousers. And it was quite funny because I'd first used that term on a British friend of mine, and she came back around. She said, "I don't really think that's what you mean," and I was like, "No, that's what I mean. I mean your pants." And she was like, "We don't really use the word pants. We use the word trousers, and pants is meant to mean underpants." And it was quite funny, and I had a big laugh about it later. But then I realized. It's something that now in my everyday life I do use quite a lot, and being a fashion student I do need to keep up with that, because it'll become quite difficult to put my terminology across if I don't use the right terms. But then another one is chips and crisps. So for us, we use the word chips instead of the word crisps back at home. And I think the last one is when people say you okay. So they're not really asking you how are you. It's more of a term of saying hello to you than to ask you anything else. But I realized the first time someone actually asked me you okay, I kind of like, it took me by surprise because I was like, why is a stranger asking me how I am? But that's just how friendly sort of everyone is, because they just wanna, if you're walking down the street, like they just wanna make sure you're okay, and they wanna make sure they politely say hi to you and or smile at you. I find that really, really nice here. It's not something we do at home at all. I don't think I've ever seen a stranger come up to me and say hello, or like, just from far away smile at me or things like that. We don't really have that kind of a thing. And I find that really, really cool here. I find it very like comforting in a manner, because it's almost like everyone around you is sort of like note, like, when you're walking down the street and you're kind of looking at everyone, and it makes you feel very comforting knowing someone else is looking back at you, and they're respectfully either smiling at you or saying hello or whatever, just to make sure they're like acknowledging you. um but yeah, those are some of the culture shocks I faced when I first came to Stoke, and have now, uh, sillily enough, if that's even a word, become like normalties of the everyday life for me. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys around sometime.